Welcome everyone to our first video on the green hydrogen horizons. We're going to be talking with Liberty Gura here today, and we're just going to be unpacking what green hydrogen is. I've known Liberty for a long time. Liberty, why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know, what your role is with green hydrogen, what you're working on right now.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Liberty. I'm a chemical engineer by profession. I've been in the waste to energy space for more than 15 years now, and my specialty has been converting waste like biomass, MSW, waste tires into various bioproducts like biofuels, hydrogen, and electricity. But for today, our focus is basically green hydrogen, which mainly comes from biomass through pyrolysis.
Well, and also so you're actually doing certification to for to improve your expertise in this field. Like what is that
Yeah.
program that you're doing right now?
Well, so on the side, there's some program that they tend to offer like RENAC. So RENAC is the Renewable Energy Academy. They offer mainly courses in the green hydrogen sector and renewable energy sector. So I'm currently doing a short course on green hydrogen, but mainly becoming a specialist, knowing the technologies, the economics of the technologies, uh, which one is viable, which is not viable, what
Yeah.
markets are more viable for green hydrogen, which are not. So it
Yeah,
covers
and
all
that's
of that.
why I was really excited when you did this. I thought, well, look, we really want to I want to help you share your expertise and knowledge and what you're learning with the general public. So, man, let's jump into it. So, in like layman's terms, what is green hydrogen?
Okay.
And
Anything
we'll get
green.
into the difference between like what green hydrogen is versus the other
Okay.
ones, but just for right now, you know.
So in particular, green hydrogen is hydrogen that comes from a green resource. In the sense is that it's either hydrogen that is produced from water or hydrogen produced from biomass, which is basically wood or any other green resource.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah,
whole gist
yeah,
of it.
no, that's really good. So
Yeah.
there's a couple of different types of what when people hear green hydrogen, they think of one thing. Now there's a couple of different terms, right? So gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen, and green hydrogen. Just real quick, if somebody comes across these terms, what do they associate these with then, as far as like
Okay.
what for
For
gray hydrogen?
for example, you get the gray hydrogen, that one comes from coal, where you pyrolyze coal into syngas and then you extract hydrogen from the syngas. You get gray hydrogen. Then you get black hydrogen, which mainly comes from the crude industry, where they separate crude into various hydrocarbons. Then they basically fractionate those hydrocarbons. They get hydrogen also from that. So depending on the source, you get a particular color. Then you have what you call white hydrogen, the best hydrogen ever. This is what you call hydrogen that exists naturally under the earth. So there's
Oh,
several
that's
countries
interesting.
that have that. Yep, there are several countries that in trillions. It's America, France, and Australia. Each has about trillion tons of white hydrogen on it, just
Is
under the earth.
the hydrogen contained within some kind of rocky material or something like that, or they're just
Yeah.
like large pockets of it, or
So as you know, as you go deeper, right, the pressure
yeah,
increases into the earth.
yeah,
So because of the high pressure under the earth, the hydrogen is kept in a compressed state.
got it, yeah,
And because as you go below the earth, the layers between the soils becomes tighter and tighter and tighter. So
yeah,
underneath, that's where the hydrogen is held, but in a very tight cavity at the high pressure.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. But did you talk about blue hydrogen?
Blue hydrogen. Okay, I forgot what
Yeah,
it.
I think this one is also from natural gas, right?
Yeah.
And I think what they do with the blue hydrogen is they're just using like uh, carbon capture
Yeah.
methodologies with it, and
Yeah.
that's the main distinction with blue hydrogen. And so but green hydrogen, the real distinction is, I guess, just the way that you're powering the electrolysis system, right? I mean, you're using
Yeah.
renewable energy versus just regular fossil
So
fuel energy.
if you use not the power from the national grid, you can't call it green hydrogen.
I
If you are
see.
doing, I'm saying if you are doing electrolysis. So if you're using power from national grid, basically maybe it's from a coal power plant or it's a nuclear power plant. It's
Right.
basically gray hydrogen in essence.
I
But
see.
it's from
Okay.
if it's from a hydroelectric power like one for hydroelectric or solar or wind, definitely that is green hydrogen.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for doing that. I know. There's lots of different terms, and people get confused. And I wasn't even aware of the white hydrogen, right? But that makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, so let's talk about in general. We mentioned some of the technology involved, but let's talk about in general. Um, you know how this works, and maybe in the future we'll talk about the history of the um, the history of hydrogen production and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, um, you know, how do we generate hydrogen that doesn't occur naturally in the Earth?
Oh, so currently there is two ways, either do electrolysis of water or or gasification or pyrolysis of biomass. Now, with electrolysis of water, it's just a matter of just putting two electrodes in water that has been thoroughly cleaned. On one side, oxygen is coming out. On the other side is hydrogen. So basically, you're splitting water into
Hmm.
oxygen and hydrogen, and then you then capture the hydrogen, dry it, compress it, then done. And then
Can
the
it be
O2.
any? Can it be any like quality of water, or does it have to be a
Oh yeah.
very?
So now, for it to be classified as green hydrogen, there's several specifications that water must meet. So that water must not be competing with human resources. So basically, it must not come from a fresh water resource in the sense that
I
it
see.
mustn't compete with what the water that people need.
Yeah.
And two, it must be like, for example, like wastewater. That's even better. So if
Hmm.
you can treat the wastewater, clean it, and then use it as green hydrogen, that's far much better because you're not competing with what? With animals or human beings. That's
Right.
very important.
Right.
But in countries where water is abundant, like Canada, Norway, those regulations are more relaxed because even if you're using a fresh water body resource, but there's too much water around for there to be a
Yeah.
competition. So in
Yeah.
that case, they do allow you to use fresh water. But
And
if you come to places that are arid like South Africa and some African countries, you are definitely forced to use either ocean water or wastewater.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
And what level do you know the level of purity that the water needs to reach before you can perform electrolysis on it?
So it needs to be quite pure. One, it needs to
Okay.
you need to remove all the minerals because once you allow any minerals, they easily coat the electrode. So within about an hour, or so it becomes ineffective. So
Ah,
that is
got it.
important. So basically, it's deionization of water. And the second one is basically a general requirement. A general requirement. You remove sand, dirt, all that is unnecessary stuff because they make the process very inefficient. So the
Got it.
first part is to clean the water at least to human level standards. And then furthermore, you need to remove all those ions. Basically, you need to deionize the water. And thereafter, you add a special type of mineral like calcium chloride. So the calcium chloride will act as a, how can I put it, as a driver for the OH and the H plus to go to the electrodes. Mainly because water, when it's in ionic form, is composed of H plus and OH negative.
Okay.
So if those two come together, they balance each other out. So when you introduce calcium chloride, it allows those what you call those ions to sort of stay separate.
Okay.
So they easily go to each respective electrode, and your course is more efficient that way.
Oh, it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
But if you use
That's
the
that's really
water
cool.
without any minerals like ASL, it will work, but it's very inefficient.
I see.
And,
Okay. Oh, so that's it's just used to boost the process. That's
yeah.
neat. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about some of the uses for green hydrogen today. And where it might be utilized that people aren't really conscious of necessarily.
Okay. The first one, obviously, we know about the Nikola truck. The you pump hydrogen into your tank, and then you use that to power your car. So basically, the hydrogen comes out from the tank into your fuel cell. So a fuel cell is just a simple a negative and positive electrode where the hydrogen meets, I think is the negative.
Hmm.
Then when it comes to the other electrode, it gets converted to water. During that process, then it then releases energy. The
Hmm.
energy then drives the what? The car forward.
Yeah,
So in
yeah,
the fuel
and
cell,
it's
yeah,
and
you're
that
combining air.
hydrogen is stored in a compressed tank in
Yeah,
these
yeah, in the
vehicles.
combi. Yeah, when
Okay.
about 750, 500 bars in between those two. So there is several companies doing that. Toyota has been doing that for a while with the Toyota Mirage. The
Hmm.
Nikola truck has been doing that for a while. So powering the vehicles is one sector. Second
Yeah.
sector is basically making basically the chemical industry. You need hydrogen to make all forms of chemical, plastics, adhesives, all kind of chemicals need hydrogen. Refinement
Uh,
of petrochemicals. So now,
do
depending
they use it
whether,
in fertilizer, like
yeah,
with ammonia for
yeah,
fertilizers?
yep. So
Interesting.
now, if you are
Wow.
using green hydrogen, you can now sell your product as a green product. So that
Okay.
gives you special access to several markets across the world, especially in Europe. Once your
Yeah.
product is classified as green, it's much easier for you to sell the product because they love the green aspect.
Yeah.
Now, the
Wow.
other sector where the green hydrogen is favored is in the steel industry. Remember, in the steel industry, they need coal. They put in coke to as fuel to produce steel from
Hmm.
iron ore. But instead of coke, they're now using hydrogen. But instead of just normal hydrogen, they're using green hydrogen. So that they are now
Really?
producing green steel. Yep, they're now producing green steel. A country just across here where I am in South Africa, in Namibia, they are now producing green. They are now producing green steel from green hydrogen.
That's really incredible. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's they're using it as the reducing agent, right, in steel
Yep.
production. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. 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 Okay.
You
That's
can
very
serve
interesting.
too many applications, and it's one of them. It's the most abundant element in the universe, not on Earth, but in the universe.
Right.
But
Right.
now measuring.
Um, but the irony is that it's not necessarily naturally occurring, right? It needs to be generated
Yeah.
in most instances, right,
Yeah.
or harvested, right? um, so for power generation, are there you know uh, is it an efficient resource for power generation in general, like on a grid,
On
sort of
a
thing?
great scale, I would say you will need to compress your tanks. You need to compress to like the tanks need to be extremely large. So now
Hmm.
the economics now come into play.
I
So
see.
I'll say for powering vehicles, like vehicles or maybe running a small database or a small grid, it can work.
Okay.
But on a larger scale, definitely the economics will be taken. My feeling is that it's not economically viable.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some explorations into energy storage, hydrogen as energy storage, right?
Yep.
Um, have you run across that in your studies at all? Like those kinds of use cases.
Yeah, so basically it's more like during can I put it? Let's say during the wind farms, right? And like in Europe and Norway, when they produce power in their wind farms or solar, sometimes they
Hmm.
produce too much power than required, which they can't feed into the grid. So instead of that power just being dissipated, what they do, they convert that power into hydrogen, which
Right.
they then store in tanks. So when they
Right.
need some power later on, they just, pass the hydrogen through some fuel cell and they produce electricity.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
It's like a
That's
battery.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's neat. Okay, so that's takes care of that on-demand power
Yeah,
requirement, right? In those instances. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, really cool stuff. So um, now, we constantly, you and I, we always talk about there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Everything has
yeah.
possible positives and downsides. When we think about the future of hydrogen, production, green hydrogen, what are let's think about some of the maybe the downsides that come along with this technology. Like what are the barriers? Why isn't it being utilized everywhere currently? Right.
Okay, one of the first barrier is the cost of production. Currently, make green hydrogen costs a lot more than gray or black hydrogen from coal or from natural gas.
Hmm.
So the idea is to find ways to produce hydrogen at a very, very low cost.
Yeah.
Currently, they are producing hydrogen by most of the companies are using electrolysis of water. Unfortunately, that process is very expensive in the sense that
Yeah.
you need to get your power from a green resource. And setting up all that stuff is expensive. Then your water, depending on where you are, it must come either from wastewater or from a what? The ocean. That means you need to desalinate that water. That's
Yeah.
more expensive.
Right.
And then by the time you need split the water, there's so many capital costs that you need to cover. So that also hinders what you lowering your cost.
Yeah.
Now, furthermore to that, the um, the maturity of technology for green hydrogen is not as mature as coal or gray, as black or gray hydrogen,
Okay.
unfortunately, because those two are using an established technology that's been there for years and years. It's been
Right.
improved further and further. So the
Right.
more we refine the technology to produce green hydrogen, the lower it will get. It will get cheaper with time.
Right.
Because currently, if you look at Nicola, one of the reasons why they became bankrupt is that getting a green hydrogen filling station in California was very difficult because hydrogen
All right.
is expensive,
Right.
unfortunately. So
Right.
that's one of the
Right.
major effects. Yeah.
Yeah. Transporting hydrogen over long distances. Um, that's an obstacle, right?
Yeah. Now, one thing about hydrogen is the smallest element in the in chemistry. So imagine trying to contain something that is small. Its natural behavior is to escape.
Yeah.
Now, one thing about hydrogen, the more you compress it, the more it wants to escape. That's how it is.
Yeah.
And then the more you compress it, the more it wants to damage the material that is holding it back. For
Oh.
example, yeah, with steel, if you use like carbon steel or stainless steel, what happens even if you compress to 250 bars, it will okay, it's fine. You compress me. We'll see who's gonna win. It will start penetrating your steel material.
Oh
It
my
will make it
gosh. Okay.
brittle. Yep.
Oh,
And then
so
instead of
any material becomes porous at a certain
yep,
pressure with hydrogen, right?
definitely. So over time, your steel starts behaving like glass. In the sense that if you just maybe touch it like that, it just breaks out.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so now the company they came up with composite material tanks. So it's carbon fiber and what do you call it? It's different type of artificial composite material. So those ones can handle hydrogen to high
Yeah.
pressure. So definitely those are the tanks being used by Toyota and Nikola.
Right.
Unfortunately, they are expensive, as you know, with composite material.
Yeah.
And two, they're a bit difficult to make. So there's sort of a limitation in terms of the size at which you can make the tank.
Probably
And
the.
then
Oh, go ahead.
and then to cover your last point about transportation, uh, if you're conveying hydrogen from a short distance, just compress it. If you're conveying for a long distance, the option is to liquefy the hydrogen. Unfortunately, liquefying hydrogen is one of the most expensive processes because once it becomes liquid, instantly it wants to become a gas. So in the tank itself, you need to have a liquefier that keeps on converting all that gas to liquid. So imagine, let's say about 2,000 miles is the distance between the two sides. That's a lot of energy that you're going to spend just to keep it in liquid form. In
That's
this,
right.
in the end, you put more money in storing the hydrogen than the money that you're gonna get out from storing the hydrogen.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Probably like the best way to utilize hydrogen is like producing it at the point at which you're going to kind of
Yeah.
use it or fill up a tank
Yeah.
or something along those lines, right? That sort
That
of thing.
resource. Yeah. That's the best
Yeah,
way.
yeah. That's interesting. Is it? I've heard. Would it be a good fuel for something like a heavy train or something along those lines, right? Um, something where it's like it doesn't really matter as far as like the weight of the fuel that you're carrying or something. Um,
So in Europe, there is countries like I think it's Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken. They are doing trials with green hydrogen trains, and it's actually working.
yeah.
But they are not long distance trains, but they are like metro trains, and it's working
Okay.
quite perfectly.
Okay.
In London, France, and Spain, I think Italy also, there's also green hydrogen buses.
Yeah.
So most of the buses are running on hydrogen, and that is proving to be quite viable in
Right.
most cities. In China, it's even better. The hydrogen stations are across the country big time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of green hydrogen driven vehicles in China.
The just hydrogen in general brings up thoughts of Hindenburg and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The old Zeppelins. Uh, what are some of the myths about the dangers of utilizing hydrogen as far as like an energy source and all that kind of stuff?
Okay. People think it's highly explosive, like you need to make a bomb or whatever. It's just that it's
Hydrogen
about,
bomb, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's a matter of how you contain the hydrogen and how you put on some safety what protocols.
Yeah.
So if it escapes because it's lighter than air, it must be kept in a ventilated area. So if there's any leakage, it easily rises into the air. And even if there's an ignition source, there is no risk of explosion.
Right.
And then it must be kept in a place where there's constant flow of air. Because once you keep it in a ventilated, in an enclosed area, the
Hmm.
risk of an explosion is very high.
Okay.
And then people tend to also put H2 detectors at the wrong place. Some they put it on the ground, of which hydrogen easily, and since it's lighter than air, it
Yeah.
easily goes up. So by the
Right.
time this detects, too late. So I'd
Yeah.
rather put them on top of where you are, so that when it rises, you can easily detect. So it's a matter
Oh,
of
okay.
healthy and safety protocol. Those
Right.
just like any other what chemical.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so and you don't necessarily hear a ton of stories about death from hydrogen or hydrogen explosion or anything like that, right?
No,
So
there's been some several cases in Europe
I'm sure.
where hydrogen tank has exploded, and that has forced them to put on more health and safety protocols, which has now improved the usage of hydrogen over time.
If I shot a gun at a hydrogen tank or something like that, is it is it a movie kind of thing where we just have a huge explosion, or
Mm.
is in general it's kind of like, man, nothing's really going to happen.
It depends if that bullet is gonna cause enough ignition, like enough heat for ignition. So if
Right.
the heat is just low, it will just allow the gas to just
The gas to
you
escape.
know
Yeah.
escape. But if there's
Right.
enough friction on the tank to allow enough heat to ignite the hydrogen, definitely there will be an explosion.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It basically, fuels are dangerous in general, sort of thing.
Generally, like
What
any other fuel.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so if you put on, you're kind of like Nostradamus hat, and you think about like a very positive future for this technology, what does that look like for you?
I think there is a beautiful future for green hydrogen, mainly because it is going to help us decarbonize a lot of industries.
Yeah.
The chemical industry, the steel industry, the transportation industry, and it's also a good energy storage system
Hmm.
because it's very
Yeah.
abundant. So the future of hydrogen is very bright because it is currently being applied everywhere.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we need to do is to shift from using gray hydrogen or blue hydrogen and use more of the green hydrogen. That way we decarbonize most of the sectors in the economy.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like let's get good at using the most abundant element in the universe, right?
Yep. All
Let's
like
get good at
people who
that.
are saying they will substitute plastics with paper. Ever try to drink a straw made of paper? It's the most disgusting thing on earth. So, so as much as we are concerned about crude oil, you need a balance between the two. Crude
Yes,
oil is important because we have so many products coming out of it.
right,
But then you can't say because it's a fossil fuel, it needs to go away. That is a bad approach. So there
right.
needs to be
One
like a
one of the
balance.
other one of the
Yeah,
other things that we talk about is the right tool for the right job, right?
exactly.
And so hopefully, this is going to be a tool for a lot more jobs in the future. I think. Yeah, no, I really appreciate all of your knowledge here, and I think we'll just keep on going and kind of like following along. What you've gained through your certification and kind of just general more detailed topics with regard
Yeah.
to green hydrogen, and we'll just get a bunch more of these. I think that's where we can finish up, and I really appreciate you. Coming on and doing this. And I think people are going to get a lot from this series. So thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, bud.
All right.
I look
We'll talk
forward
to you
to
later.
this. All right.
Absolutely. See ya.
Bye bye.
Thank you for joining us on Green Horizons as we explored the fascinating world of green hydrogen.